Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Katey Flowers and I am so excited about this video. Today I am going to be recommending you books based on your sun sign. But as we all know, I know nothing about astrology other than what I learn in memes, which is not always that accurate. Can you believe it? Anyway, I thought if I was going to do this video right, I needed to bring on an expert. So of course, I reached out to one of my favorite creators, someone I consider a friend, and our resident astrologer here on TarotTube. That is, of course, the one and only Samantha Menzo. So before I get into it, I will let her introduce herself.
Hello everyone, my name is Sammy. I'm your Gemini Sun, Taurus Moon, Virgo Rising astrologer. And the iconic Katey Flowers asked me to come on here and give you a stereotypical rundown of each of these zodiac signs. Please keep in mind throughout this video that this is meant to be fun and lighthearted. So anything that I break down as far as characteristics or traits about the signs are super generalized and bullet pointed for the sake of time. It's just a teeny tiny microscopic part of what astrology actually entails. If you would like to learn more about what a natal chart is or the language of the stars, head on over to my YouTube channel, my website, or my Instagram after this video. But let's do this.
In this video, we're going to go through each of the signs and Sammy is going to provide you with a sort of like basic overview, sort of generic summation of the main characteristics associated with each sign. And then I am going to recommend you a book based on those characteristics. I am a Libra Sun, Sagittarius Rising, and Capricorn Moon, and I have read all of these books. So obviously this is coming from my own lens, but as a Libra, I have good taste, so you can probably trust me. I think that's how that works. So let's just dive in. And Sammy, take it away with the first sign.
Aries. Aries is ruled by Mars, which is the god of war. It is fiery, it is action, and it's movement. They tend to start things very easily as they do not like to sit around. However, getting them to finish that task often feels like trying to get the Tasmanian devil to stop spinning. Everything is a competition to Aries. It's me first or I'll race you, and in a game of truth or dare, they would pick dare every single time. So Katey, what book would you choose for Aries, this fiery, athletic, and chaotic sign?
So for Aries, I would like to recommend you All Systems Red, which is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries by Martha Wells. This is a fun, fast-paced, high-action sci-fi book. It is part of a larger series, but All Systems Red, the first book, is a very self-contained story, so you can enjoy it as a standalone if you're not into series. And I know that Aries can sometimes struggle with commitment, so you've got options, I guess. It is 150 pages, so a very quick read, and it does not stop moving from beginning to end. Although it is a little bit more on the hard sci-fi end, it is still so playful and fun, which makes it so damn readable. In this story, we basically meet and then follow a sec unit or security unit, which is an android. However, this android is sentient and it calls itself Murderbot. It's been deployed on this mission to a planet to protect some humans while they carry out some science experiments. And Murderbot is sort of like this hyper-intelligent and at the same time almost kind of immature character, emotionally immature anyway, who in the midst of all this chaos and mess is still trying to figure itself out. And as someone with a best friend who is an Aries, I know full well that sometimes you like to pick fights. And whilst Murderbot never picks fights without a reason, it is proactive in combat. I love this book and I love this series and I would recommend it to almost anybody, but I think particularly you Aries would love it.
Taurus. Ah, the slow-moving Taurus that just wants comfort and security. This makes them dependable and loyal AF, but do not ask them to change. From the simplest of things to the biggest of things, change is not something that comes easy to Taurus. Like if their butt hits the couch, good luck trying to pry them off of it. Taurus is kind of an all or nothing, no in between kind of energy. It's ruled by Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, and Taurus is connected to material possessions and they often are an avid collector of things. So Katey, what book would you choose for Taurus? The dependable yet stubborn, slow-moving energy of Taurus.
Now for you Tauruses? Taurians? For the people with the sun sign of Taurus, I want to recommend The Remains of the Day by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is a recent historical fiction set in the mid-1950s in which we follow an aging butler named Stevens, who at the beginning of the novel decides to take a short break, a little holiday away from his position sort of running and maintaining Darlington Hall. And the world is changing rapidly around him, and yet he is very much stuck in his ways. He is a man of dignity, and he values highly the traditions that he has been a part of upholding for so long. He's dedicated not only to his position at Darlington Hall and to his employer, but he's also dedicated to the idea of aristocracy and class and where he fits into that system. It's quite a slow-paced book with some beautiful, evocative, atmospheric writing. And as Stevens goes on this holiday, he also begins to reflect on his life as a butler and his position at Darlington Hall, and in particular his relationship with his now dead employer, and confronting what legacy he may have and what sort of ideas may be attached to his name. He's loyal, honourable, and dependable, almost to a fault. He very much believes in the right way of doing things, and I think this is for a lot of reasons, but I think one of those reasons is because he values the sort of comfort and consistency that comes from predictability and knowing where you stand in society and what your role is. It's a beautifully written book and very well acclaimed, and I think Tauruses will both appreciate and enjoy the beautiful writing, as well as identifying with some of the themes that are explored, especially through the character of Stevens.
Gemini. Duality is key to Gemini energy. They need variety and options to keep their overstimulated, restless energy, this extra curious energy, interested. Geminis could talk to a brick wall. Period. Gemini is what's called a mutable sign. They're the most adaptable, or one of the most adaptable signs in any situation. Often adapting so much that they can become the people they surround themselves with. So like, Gemini, who even are you? The answer to that from them would be they don't even know. They're everyone and no one. So Katey, what book would you choose for this flighty and witty, very talkative sign of Gemini?
For you Geminis, I would like to recommend Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. Yes, I know it's a long book and you have a short attention span, but hear me out. Although this is very much a novel and not a collection of short stories, it is presented in a series of character profiles featuring 12 diverse, distinct characters, which means this book has almost as many personalities as you do. Although it is a bit of a longer book, each and every chapter feels almost self-contained, and in each we meet a new character and we get to learn all about them and their life experience and sort of what has made them who they are today, which I think will give you Geminis enough diversity and variation in both the storytelling and the character that you're focusing on to keep you interested. The writing style and prose of this is a little unconventional, which not everybody loves about this book, but I think for Geminis, with your appreciation of language, as well as your adaptability, will enable you to move with the storytelling seamlessly, and I think that sort of experimentation with language will end up being something you quite enjoy. This is very character heavy with a lot of dialogue, which I know you'll love. But it also explores lots of topical themes and important issues, which give the book a lot of depth, and I know you will appreciate that, and I think it will keep you engaged.
Cancer. Cancer is represented perfectly by the crab. Hard, protective, crabby ass, sassy ass exterior, but like the most softest and squishiest of insides. It's a nurturing sign with connection to family or adopted family, such as friends or animals. They are extremely sentimental. They are prone to holding on to things that attach experiences or memories that have meaning to them, which again is pretty much everything. So which book would you choose for this sensitive, watery, yet super defensive crab-ass sign of Cancer?
For my dear sweet Cancers, I would like to recommend to you Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is a book all about a small little basement cafe in Tokyo where you can go and travel in time. There are lots of different rules associated with when, how, and where you can travel in time, but the big one is that you have to be back before your coffee gets cold. There's 4 chapters in this book, and in each chapter we meet a new character who comes to the cafe because they want to travel in time. And as you can imagine, all of these people come to the cafe wanting to travel in time because they have one particular person that they want to see again often for the last time. Although it is very short and each chapter feels almost like a self-contained story, Kawaguchi does a wonderful job of bringing these characters to life, making you fall in love with them, making you care about their journey. And at the end of the day, it's one of the most heartwarming, sentimental, sweet little books I've ever read. And even though each chapter very much focuses on whichever of these characters wants to be traveling back in time, we do also have this recurring cast almost of the staff who work in the cafe, and you'll fall in love with them too. I adore this book and it has made me cry more than I think any other book I've ever read. And I've heard all about how you Cancers love to cry, so I think this is the perfect book for you.
Leo. Leo is ruled by the sun, the center of the universe, which is just how Leo's energy feels. Center of attention, exuding warmth and creativity wherever they go. Leos are so generous, they would literally give you the shirts off of their backs, but they will definitely make sure to post about it on social media, because if they didn't post about it, then how will anyone know that it happened? If you have an extra gold star or an extra attaboy, make sure you give it on over to your praise-loving, beautifully creative and childlike Leos. Katey, what book would you choose for this fun, creative, and lucky sign of Leo?
For you Leos, I would like to recommend Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This is an action-adventure YA sci-fi in which we meet a teenage girl called Spencer who dreams of becoming a fighter pilot. She lives on a planet that is constantly under attack by a rather mysterious enemy, and she joins the Air Force to protect and defend her people. This book is an absolute romp. It is a fast-paced, wild ride from start to finish. Spencer is a character who definitely has her flaws, although she is just such a warm, generous person and you can't help but rooting for her. Spencer ends up becoming a part of a small team of young fighter pilots who she ends up growing to love and care for deeply. But she is quite a competitive person by nature and always driven to be the best. She and her team come up against several really complex, interesting challenges throughout the book and have to come up with some really creative solutions to seemingly impossible situations. It's a really fun book about a bunch of friends figuring themselves and life out in the midst of war, while never losing their childlike innocence, hope, and curiosity. There is so much action and fun in this book, and it's just a whirlwind from start to finish. And I can only imagine that that's probably what it feels like to be in a relationship with a Leo.
Virgo. Virgos love to help and be of use. Give them a task and they will happily accept. They're the fix-it sign, seeing all the details and imperfections everywhere. If you look up the word picky in the dictionary, you will just see Virgo as a definition. But this mercurial sign has a million ideas and thoughts per second. It's constantly thinking and overthinking, but you best believe that they see and know everything. Which book would you choose for this orderly, clean, and ritualistic sign of Virgo?
For Virgos, I would like to recommend Kim Ji-young, born 1982, by Cho Nam-ju. We follow Ji-young throughout her life, from when she's a child into her adolescence, as she becomes an adult, pursues a career, gets married, has children. She's basically designed as a character to be representative of Korean women of her age. So she's the average Korean woman whose everyday life and struggles are sort of exacerbated by the sexism, misogyny, and discrimination that she faces throughout her life. Although it is very much a novel, the author has incorporated statistics and references throughout the text in order to really emphasize the reality of being a woman in a patriarchal society. Rather than speaking philosophically or in metaphor, as many fiction titles that try to tackle topical subjects do, this book uses narrative to really highlight the issues at hand and provides very specific, measurable, real-world ways in which these things can be so harmful to women, especially as they accumulate over a lifetime. I think what Virgos will appreciate this book is just how specific and realistic it is, and how it so neatly and cleverly contributes to the conversation of feminism, particularly in Korea, but not limited to.
Libra. Libra is also ruled by Venus, the goddess of love and beauty. So just like Taurus, they're also into aesthetics, and they love lyrics and beautiful wording and poetry and love. They want peace at any cost, even if it comes at the sacrifice of their own health and happiness. They are magnetic, and everybody wants to be friends or to be around a Libra, which is perfect because they never want to be alone. What book would you choose, Katey, for this diplomatic, romantic, yet gossipy sign of Libra?
Now for my fellow Libras, I have chosen one of my favorite books, The Yield by Tara June Lynch. This book is primarily about three things: justice, family, and language. In the main part of the story, we follow a young Wiradjuri woman who has been living in the UK but returns home to Australia after her grandfather passes away. Upon her return, she discovers that her grandmother is going to be evicted from her home that she's lived in her entire life. And so from here, the questions and conversations around native title and land rights emerge. However, what makes this book super special is that we don't just get one perspective, we get three. And I just know my fellow Libras are going to love exploring and engaging with several different points of view in this book. So the second perspective that we get in this book is a letter written by a priest in the late 1800s and early 1900s who ran a mission. And the third perspective in this book comes from the grandfather of the main character. And before he died, he knew he was going to die, so he decided to write down a dictionary of his Wiradjuri language. I think Libras will really love the focus on justice in this story, but I think you'll also really appreciate just how beautifully written this story is and its focus on language through this dictionary. And there's big themes of how we find our own place in the world, our role, and also of how we engage diplomatically with systems that are inherently oppressive.
Scorpio. Intense. Scorpio is ruled traditionally by Mars, which is again the god of war and action, but in modern times it's ruled by Pluto, which is the lord or god of the underworld. Depth and power is Scorpio's vibe. You know those really uncomfortable silences that everybody hates? Yes, Scorpio thrives inside those spaces. Scorpio is incredible at making you feel like you know them so that they can know you, but unless they're really ready to let you in, which seems extremely rare for Scorpios, you really only know them as much as they want you to know them. You know? Which book would you choose for this persuasive, mysterious, and sensitive sign of Scorpio?
For Scorpio, I think I've got the perfect book, and that is Split Tooth by Tanya Tagaq. This is a strange, haunting, and very mysterious book that sort of blurs the line between fact and fiction. It follows a young girl living and growing up in a very remote part of Canada, and just sort of like the tragedies and beauties of existing in this time and place and community. As she gets older and the book progresses, the spirituality and the magic escalates into this terrifying, beautiful, moving, sensual experience and interaction with the power of nature. It's a bit of a difficult book to talk about because it is more about feeling and experience and interpretation than it is plot. It blurs myth and reality, poetry and prose, good and evil, moral and immoral, which results in quite an uncomfortable book. But I think Scorpios in particular would really appreciate this strange, tender, heartbreaking story more than anyone else. On GoodReads it says, haunting, brooding, exhilarating, and tender all at once. And honestly, is that describing the book or a Scorpio? Just an FYI though, there are a lot of trigger warnings for this book, including explicit sexual assault.
Sagittarius. Sagittarius feels like a spontaneous adventure at all times. Always restless and ready to move. This sign has no indoor voice, no filter, and no fucks. Sagittarius is free and expressive, wanting to explore, learn, and just enjoy themselves. Ruled by the planet Jupiter, they are extremely optimistic. And as long as they can create some sort of structure in their lives where they need it, these people can feel like a living, walking good luck charm. Katie, what book would you choose for this blunt, philosophical, and free expressive sign of Sagittarius?
Now Sagittarius, when Sammy used the words spontaneous adventure, I knew exactly which book I had to recommend for you. And that is The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Ran Away. What a title, right? This is a weird and wacky adventure featuring Alan, a 100-year-old man who runs away from the nursing home on his 100th birthday. He is spontaneous in every way, having no plan when he absconded from the nursing home. He really does just sort of stumble along and make the most of every situation he finds himself in. Along the way, he sort of collects this band of misfits who sort of all somehow get swept up into his ridiculous antics. It's just a hilarious whirlwind adventure, and Alan just kind of does what he wants and doesn't really pay much attention to potential consequences. He really is just living life to the full. And yet, somehow, no matter how much trouble he gets him and his friends in, he manages to make the most of it and walk away with a big smile on his face. As the book progresses, we also learn a bit more about his backstory, which is just as chaotic as his present. It's just an absolutely mad, fun, life-affirming, charming little story about an old man who wants to make the most of his life. There is a little bit of a philosophical twist here if you wanted to read into it that way, but ultimately it's just a super, super fun book, and I think Sagittariuses would love it.
Capricorn. Capricorns come out of the womb a full-grown adult. They don't mess around, and succeeding at their goals is the only thing that's on their minds. They want it, they got it, no matter how long it takes. Capricorn is structured, old school, and really sees the value in tradition. They aren't known for being the warmest of the signs, but don't get it twisted. Capricorns are witty, and they can be one of the funniest signs if you're into dry and unexpected humor. Katey, what book would you choose for this strategic, patient, and ambitious sign of Capricorn?
Now for Capricorn, I would like to recommend Transcendent Kingdom by Yaa Gyasi. This is a contemporary literary fiction novel about Gifty, who is a neuroscientist at Stanford University, and she is hugely dedicated and committed to her career and to succeed at all costs. Throughout the novel, Gifty sort of talks through her career, but then she's also reflecting on her experience growing up. Her family was from Ghana but moved to Alabama, and they were very religious. And Gifty herself as a child was very invested in her relationship with God, and she describes herself as always wanting to be a good Christian girl. However, as she grows up, she's finding herself more and more inclined to questioning things. And on top of that, she's also witnessing the impact things like addiction, depression, and racism have on herself and her family. I think Capricorns will appreciate the character of Gifty, and I think you'll enjoy her drive to perfect her craft, her work ethic, and her ambition, while also enjoying the complex discussion this book raises about progress versus tradition, science versus religion, questioning versus dedication, and whether these things are always opposing or if they can coexist. It's a sad book in a lot of ways, but it's also just a really beautiful and thought-provoking one. I think you'll really enjoy the character of Gifty, and I think you'll love some of the themes this one brings up.
Aquarius. Hello there, Earthlings. Yes, Aquarius are the aliens that are walking here among us. They are more in love with humanity as a whole than they are with individuals. They are the soapbox heroes and the underdog advocates. They are the black sheeps, and they like it that way. If everyone is doing something, Aquarius is doing the opposite. Their minds work outside of the box. In fact, they're working on changing the box into something else, like a hexagon, or maybe creating an entirely new shape altogether in their search for rebellion. What book would you choose for this independent, eccentric, and emotionally detached sign of Aquarius?
Now, Aquarius, this one might seem a bit obvious given what Sammy said, but I have selected for you Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. And I'm going to start by saying this is just a weird-ass book. At the beginning, we meet Natsuki, who is a strange young girl who has a magic wand and a magic mirror, and she believes she's an alien. As she grows up, she tries to fit herself into the box that society wants her to be in and to play out the roles that society wants her to play. But at some point in the book, she sort of finds that she just can't contain herself any longer. She, along with two men, her cousin and her husband, return to their childhood conviction that they are aliens, and they sort of retreat and remove themselves from society. This story just gets weirder and stranger as these characters disconnect more and more from both society and eventually also their humanity. It's a complex, strange exploration of trauma, the pressures of society, as well as our individual drive to be true to ourselves. It's hard to talk about this book because it is just really fucking bonkers. And I think that is something you will really like about it, Aquarius. The only thing I will say is that there are quite a lot of trigger warnings for this book. So if it's something you're interested in, be sure to look those up.
Pisces. Pisces somehow lives between realms. They can't remember if they dreamt it or if it actually happened. And having to deal with the physical world realities can sometimes feel too much for these very sensitive creatures. Everything in the world is art, or a sign, or a connection to something bigger for Pisces. They are extremely compassionate and also very gullible, so please be kind to these fragile, self-deprecating souls. They just feel a lot. What book would you pick for this watery, intuitive, yet moody sign of Pisces?
Now Pisces, I would like to recommend to you I Had That Same Dream Again by Yuro Sumino. This is a light novel from Japan, so it's very easy to read. It's almost like a middle grade young adult sort of story, but it's beautiful. It's a coming of age story featuring a schoolgirl who's quite unhappy, and her name is Nanako. And she ends up meeting and becoming friends with 3 different people. A high school girl, a sort of middle-aged, really interesting, clever woman, and then an older lady who's sort of at the end of her life. She meets all of these people in very synchronistic ways, and the relationships she develops with them do entail quite a bit of mystery. As Nanako tries to understand the importance of these people in her life, she's also completing a school project about the definition of happiness. As I said, it is a light novel, so it's very easy to read, but it has a really touching, sweet message and just the right level of fantasy, I think, for a Pisces to really appreciate. I can't explain exactly why this book is perfect for a Pisces without spoiling it. You're just gonna have to trust me on that one. So that is it. That is the list of books that I would recommend to each and every zodiac sign. Please let me know if you end up reading any of these books based on my recommendation, whether that's just your sun sign or if you decide to pick for your moon and rising as well. I really hope you all enjoyed this video. I was so looking forward to making it, and thank you so much, Sammy, for collaborating with me on this.
So that's it from me, Sammy, your Gemini sun, Taurus moon, Virgo rising astrologer. Thank you so much, King Katey, for gracing me with a spot on your channel for this collab video. I adore you, and I cannot wait to read all of the books that you recommended based on each of these zodiac signs. KK, I love you. Bye. Bye!
If you want more astrology content, don't forget to check out Sammy's channel, which I will leave a link to in the description box below. And if you happen to want some more bookish content from me, I do also have a second channel. It's just a little channel, but I make mostly bookish content over there. Also, a big thank you goes to my patrons over on Patreon for supporting me and my channel, and especially big thank you goes to Livia, Lynette Brown, and Laurie. Thank you so much. And thank you for watching, and again, thank you to Sammy. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, and I will talk to you again in the comments down below and in the next video. Until then, happy reading and so much love. Bye!